Here in the UK, they've been prescribed. Palestine action has been prescribed. So the real thing that I think we should learn from this is that the idols upon which they claim the Western civilization is built are crumbling. Let's be honest about that. So, and we mustn't be shy in saying this. So when they talk about freedom of speech, what freedom of speech, right? Where's Charlie Hebdo? Charlie Hebdo was out there when there was an incident in France. All the politicians of the world gathered in Paris, and they had a big march against so-called terrorism. We've got genocide live streamed, evidenced. The perpetrators of the genocide have been doing uploads onto the YouTube and to Facebook and to all the various social platforms, advertising and promoting their genocide. There is nothing left to the imagination. It is clear cut what's going on there. Yet, when people speak against that, it has been criminalized. So this issue of freedom of speech has been killed by the West themselves when they talked about international law-based world order. Well, where is it? Where is it? Where's the courts? Where's the ICJ? Where's the United Nations? Where's the international law? And I think many people are waking up now, Brother Knight. Many people are waking up that all of these idols, institutions, call them what you like, are a one-way street. They're there to work for the Western global world order, not for anybody else, whether they be Muslims or anybody else. It doesn't work for them. So international law doesn't work for us. Democracy doesn't work for us. Freedom of speech doesn't work for us. People say, well, what do you mean? I mean, I think you will also remember 1991 when Algeria had elections and the FIS got the majority vote. What did they do? They cancelled the elections. When they had elections in the Gaza Strip and the people voted for Hamas, they've got a, what do you call it? They have got a remit from the public to be their representatives. But the world doesn't recognize that. So it just goes to show that democracy, it only works when it works in their favor. If it doesn't work in their favor, it's not right. So democracy is a one-way street. International law is a one-way street. Recently, I forget the name, one of the Western politicians said, when we created this ICJ, it wasn't for Western rulers, it was for the African rulers and the despots around the world. As if white people can't be despots, as if Western governments can't be oppressive and commit genocide. When they talk about never again, we had Bosnia, we had the Uyghurs, we had the Rohingyas, we had the Kashmirs. We've got genocides taken in the four corners of the world, and yet they still come out every year, never again, never again. So when they say never again, it's a one-way street. Never again against a certain group of people, whether it's Western people or people that they support. It's not there for the Muslims, not there for the Africans, not there for the Asians, not there for the rest of the world. So this colonial world still continues, but in a different guise.
Yes. Also, Ruhi, I think, I know you'd like to comment on what Mazhar is saying, but also just following up from what Mazhar is saying as well, in terms of terrorism, and when one looks at the definition of terrorism, obviously participating in acts of terrorism, and we know the word terrorism has become synonymous with Muslims, and it's been for a very, very long time, for the last 20, 30 years as well. And we see in the UK, organizations like Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, many other organizations that have been prescribed. These are people, they're saying that, obviously they've been recruiting people to commit terror. But looking at this definition of terrorism, particularly with regard to Palestine action, and we are not talking about Muslims. When I say it's become synonymous with Muslims, now terrorism is becoming synonymous with people who are not Muslim, but standing up for a cause, standing up for justice, standing up against this genocide that has been unfolding in Palestine.
I think, what this conflict in Palestine has done is brought out all the hypocrisies and the contradictions of what we consider this to be a democracy, what the Western democracy stands for. And I think it's been a sort of a awakening to a lot of people. It's incredible how this has galvanized most of the public in Britain to stand up against this ridiculous idea of terrorism. I mean, let's not forget that, anti-apartheid activists were called terrorists. Nelson Mandela was banned and labeled a terrorist by the South African government, but also by Thatcher, USA, and others. So, this is something that is a continuation, actually. But what Gaza has done is expose the contradictions, whereby they want to conflate it with Islam, sort of blaming it on Islam. But I think the public sees beyond that. That argument doesn't wash anymore. However, we do have to be cautious, because I think the government is getting traction, and what it's doing is it's dangerously conflating civil protests with terrorism. It's putting free speech at a risk. I mean, there's a tradition here of protest. I'm just looking at my list of protests that have taken place in the past. The suffragettes, they campaigned through direct action and civil disobedience to win women the vote. The Jarrow marches, the 1936 protest that was led by 200 unemployed men from Jarrow to London. The miners' strikes, there were lots and lots of action during those anti-war protests, whether it's the CND, the Green and Common women's camps against the storing of US cruise missiles in the UK, the anti-Iraq war. Mass protests have challenged foreign policy forever. But there's something about the government right now, and I think that's what we have to be looking at, is why is it different this time? And it's different. One is the whole thing of the war against Islam, but I think there's something more sinister going on, and that is our government's collusion with the Israeli government. This is a government 5,000 miles away that is determining UK domestic policy, let alone foreign policy. And I think that's a real worrying thing for us. It's eroding our civil rights, our kind of independence as British people. And I think the government has a lot to answer for. The media has a lot to answer for. So there is something much, much more sinister going on in Britain, I think, than, a simple thing that it's just a war against Islam. It's a war. It's a falling apart of so-called Western democracy. They're in a crisis, and I think they're in trouble. And I think the world sees through them. Finally, there's something I feel important happening here. There's something breaking down in this veneer of fairness and tolerance and justice, etc. They are eroding all those tenets that are supposedly British tenets of values. So I think there's something very worrying happening in terms of how the government is dealing with this, and I think they've got it terribly wrong.
Well, Ruhi, clearly it is very, very worrying, and it gets even more sinister because apart from Mazhar, apart from governments and their complicity in this genocide, particularly Western Europe, the likes of the United States of America as well, what is even more sinister is recently I've seen a clip of Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur, and she highlighted some of the largest corporations in the entire world, from banking to media to tech companies, you name it, they were there, the who's who of the corporate world that has been complicit in this genocide. And when one looks at Palestine action at this point in time, targeting corporates, targeting the military-industrial complex, all of them are actually put together. Now, these are actions that are directed at the corporate world, at banks, at investment firms, at weapons manufacturers. So apart from just government complicity, corporate complicity as well. And I think, possibly it could lay the answer as far as why ordinary people like Palestine Action have now become the target and being labeled as terrorists.
Al Bates Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Gaza needs your support more than ever. Homes have been shattered and families have lost everything. With your support, our teams are delivering clean water tankers, feeding the hungry, and assisting orphans who have no one left. Let us give Gaza whatever help we can. African Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Searching for elite local and international investment and advisory services from an award-winning firm? Look no further than the Belmont Mayer Group, your gateway to unparalleled investment and wealth management. At Belmont Mayer, we believe in the art of wealth creation, a meticulous process fueled by our unwavering commitment to excellence. With a focus on providing elite alternative investments and quality advice, we also pride ourselves on maximizing value for our esteemed investors, as seen through our consistent outperformance. Your financial success is our top priority. Join us at Belmont Mayer and experience the difference firsthand. Ready to embark on a journey of greatness? Contact us today. Reach out to the Belmont Mayer Group on 078 786 1698. Call or WhatsApp or email us at info@belmontmayer.com. Elevate your financial future with Belmont Mayer, where every detail matters.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
You know, I've said this many times, and I'm going to say it again, that these are the real rulers. When you've got your corporate elite, your bankers, the corporate world, the wealthy elite, democracy is there in order to legitimize the rule of the people with the vested interest. It's always been like that. My teacher said to me at school, and I've said this before, it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government always gets in. Because it doesn't matter if it's the blue party or the red party here in the UK or in America. The people that fund these parties call the shots on the political agenda. You know, one interesting thing, and maybe, you know, Ruhi will remember this because I think she's probably a little bit younger than me, and she'll probably remember Margaret Thatcher, that when she came to power in 1979, there was not one single reference in her manifesto of privatization. But when she came to power, we had the biggest privatization ever in British history, and they privatized across the economy. But there was not a single mention in that. So her agenda wasn't dictated to by the people who voted for her. We vote them in, but the legislation program is determined by the people that fund the political parties. Now, like you've often heard the phrase, "If voting made any difference, they ban it." Well, there's a long track record in that, and Ruhi mentioned a lot of facts there. You know, she's talking facts there, that the only effective change in British political history, and I think you can extrapolate this across the world in the so-called democratic world, but here in Britain, the only meaningful political changes which have taken place in Britain have happened outside of the ballot box. So when the suffragettes campaigned to get the vote, it wasn't through the system, it was outside the system. When we looked at, when Thatcher tried to put here in Britain a poll tax, everybody was opposed to it.
Yeah.
Many members in parliament were opposed to it, but she pushed it through. People rioted in Trafalgar Square. And that brought the downfall of her and the downfall of that policy, again, outside the ballot box. When the British people were against the Iraq war, when majority of the Labour MPs were against the Iraq war, when the second most powerful politician in Britain, Robin Cook, Foreign Secretary, was against the Iraq war, Blair still took the country to war, because it's not the MPs that make the law, it's not the people who vote in the elections that make the law, it is made by these elite that you refer to. And they've determined that we are going to do X, Y, and Z when it comes to foreign policy. So the military-industrial complex, your bankers and your corporate, these are what they refer to as British interests. So when Britain says we are going to war for British interests, it's not for Fred Bloggs down the road, or Muhammad in the local grocery shop, or the Uber driver, or Fred working in his office down the road. It's for British. British interest means the corporate interest. So when they went to Iraq and they spent millions of pounds and people died on both sides, for whose benefit was that? Has that improved the lives of British people? No, it hasn't. Has it improved the lives of the Iraqi people, the Afghani people? No, it hasn't. But the people who have done very well out of it is what you call the military complex, the bankers, and the corporate world.